joined by VolQuest's Brent Hubbs on a gorgeous Friday morning in the mid-state. What's up, Brent? How are you?
I'm doing great. Hope you guys are doing. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry
You too.
Christmas.
Brent, do you miss the chaos of the fax machines and the cell phone calls and just the mayhem of National Signing Day? Because to me, and obviously I don't do what you do, so I just watch from afar and read the message boards and enjoy the chaos, but things are just so chill on National Signing Day nowadays. Do you miss it at all?
Yeah, I do. Because I enjoyed that day, particularly as a young guy getting started, and I was working with Mike Keith and radio in Knoxville, and I created a board every night or the night before signing day with name tags, and you moved guys from committed to signed, and we had it all organized, and you got into work, as the sun was coming up. It was, as we joked to the newsroom, I mean, it was kind of recruiting for 2 months was election day because you worked basically election coverage hours every night, and that was the conclusion of election night. So selfishly, yeah, I miss the way. I don't know that I miss all the calls in January and all the back and forth and everything, but the actual day itself was a lot more fun. I ran 2 errands this year in the morning time, which, I mean, typically I would never have left my house. Right. Because you had so much going on. There was so much happening. So, yeah, I mean, I do miss the old way, but the old way is never coming back. So the new way is more about the transfer portal. That's where the stress lies, is more about that. I mean, there's a handful of guys, as we saw around the country, but it's certainly not what it used to be.
Well, Brent, this is an interesting class because you've got a lot of quality. You also have a lot of guys where Tennessee was second place for many 5-star athletes in this entire 2024 class. But as you just look at the thing in totality, is there any disappointment in just Tennessee maybe not capitalizing more off of an 11-win season with this class? Where do you kind of grade this group as it sits right now?
Well, I think you look at receiver, you love Mike Matthews. I like the Staley kid. I think that's a good one. But they, probably wanted a third receiver, and you didn't land a guy there. In the high school ranks at tight end, they swung for the fences on, I guess 3 or 4 of the top 5 tight ends in the country and didn't land there. They ended up with Cole Harrison from California late, who I think is an interesting prospect who may develop into a good player. But that's not where they were initially going at the tight end position. And anybody who says otherwise is just not, that's just not what they were and what they were about. I like them in the secondary. I love Boo Carter. I think Marcus Gorey is really underrated in this class. So was Caleb Beasley. I like them at linebacker. I think you look and see that they did not sign a high school interior defensive lineman, and I think that's a big of a concern for me. It won't affect them at all in 24, but I wonder where that defensive line room is in 25 and 26, and how heavy are they going to have to be in the portal? And we know the challenge in finding, really good defensive linemen in the portal is there. And if you find one, they're not very cheap at all. I do like the offensive line class they put together. I think Gage Ginther's a really good player. I love Bennett Warren. I love Satterwhite. I think Jesse Perry's got a chance in a couple of years to be a quality player. That group has to have a great first year because they're going to be in the mix, to borrow an old Philip Fulmer line, Ramon Foster. They're going to be in the mix to be in the potential running for the starting lineup in some of those spots in 25 when you look at all the offensive linemen they're going to lose at the end of next year.
Brent, excluding the Jordan Seaton conversation, we'll hold that one to later and cap off everything, okay?
All right.
Have you seen this many 4 or 5 stars flip or not sign, so much so that Tennessee's going to be able to get Dominic McKinley on campus also? I feel like what do you contribute? Is it money? Is it playing time? Is it coaches? Is it stability? Where is the flipping and not signing coming from?
Well, I think in those situations, it's all a little bit different. I mean, everybody's deal is a little bit different. I think for McKinley, I think it's the coaching change, I think, is a red flag, right, of why he didn't sign with A&M. I think that there's some unknown there, and he's tried to figure that out and where that goes. Obviously, there are a lot of flips, and Will asked me off the top, do I miss the old days? And I do, because it was uneventful for Tennessee, which is probably a good thing, right, and the fact that you didn't lose anybody on National Signing Day. It was an old day for Florida and for Georgia and Alabama, who flipped guys either for them or they lost guys on signing day. That felt very much like an old February day. It just didn't affect Tennessee as much. I think the NIL stuff is a huge contributor to last minute flips, Ramon. I really do. I think that's a part of it. So there's some coaching change stuff that causes some of that in terms of guys not signing. But we saw a good number of flips of guys who had been committed for, 2 months, 6 months, 8 months. And you got to think NIL was a factor in that.
Yeah, definitely, man. And before I forget to, I have to ask a question as far as bowl prep and the game on New Year's Day. What will we see as far as quarterback play? Will it be first quarter Joe, rest of it Nico? How do you parse the reps for those two men right there?
Well, we'll see what Josh Heupel elects to do. The history of Josh Heupel says, Joe Milton, who's practiced all week long, is the starter, and he'll play until the game's in hand or whatever. But I just think this bowl game, I think bowl games are different. I think you're going to see Nico early in this game in some capacity, whether that's the third series or second quarter or heck, who knows what happens. But I do think you're going to see Joe Milton, you're going to see Nico on the field early. And I think it's important that you do that. And I think bowl games, and you got to be careful because you don't want to just bypass your seniors, right? Because they've earned the bowl game, and bowl games are still a reward in a lot of ways. But when you're not in the playoff, you got all the opt-out stuff that's going on out there. These are exhibition games, and you want to see young players. You want to give them a taste. You want to have them engaged. You want to have them understand where they are, because they all think they're in a place that they're probably not, right, Ramon? I mean, you think if you're a young player, hey, I'm ready, I'm good to go, I can do anything that guy can do. And then you get out there and you go, hey, wait a minute, I might need a little more work in the film room, or I might need more work in the weight room. So I think you have to take full advantage of that in these bowl games. I'm not saying you wholesale change and you don't give, starting opportunities for seniors or anything like that. But I do think you have to have a conscious effort to play your young players to give them an idea of where they are heading into the offseason.
Brent Hubbs joining us now on Arcade Dub. Brent, we had this conversation yesterday about recruiting and obviously how it's changing with the transfer portal and NIL. And we brought up Hugh Freeze, and Will mentioned, Hugh Freeze is kind of focusing in on, those high school kids and really making sure he's going all in on the high school recruiting. And, you see Lane Kiffin, he's kind of the transfer portal guy. Do you feel like you have to have a real solid game plan now as a college coach because there's so much that you can focus on now with building a team?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can be kind of flighty about it. Like, well, okay, we go here, we go there. I mean, I think you have to have a clear design plan because as I've said many times on our message board and many places, it's not monopoly money when it comes to NIL. Fans think it is, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, fans think that it's just you got a war chest full of monopoly money that you can just go out and pay everybody what they want. That's not the reality. So where do you focus your NIL funding on? Is it on high school kids coming out? Is it on retaining your current roster? Is it on the transfer portal? Is it a balance of all three? Is it a balance of two of the three? Where are you with that, and what is your plan? I'm not saying Lane Kiffin's wrong. We don't know. I mean, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss clearly are all in, right, with what they've done in the portal this year in particular. But he's done a lot of portal work since he's been there, even though he's, been gnashing the teeth about it. But that's kind of the direction they have gone. Is that the right way to do it? We'll find out this fall. I mean, they won 10 games. They're in their New Year's 6 and, this season, and they're pushing their chips onto into the table for next year. What does that make them look like in 25 and 26? We don't know. We'll see. This is new to everybody, but I don't think you can have, all right, this year we're all in, it's all about portal. We're going to focus all of our funding on portal. And the next year you're going to go, well, we're going to go all in for high school. And the next year we're going to pay all this to retain our roster. I think you do have to have a plan. It probably evolves some from year to year, but you better have a clear defined plan.
And part of that, I would think, too, is the importance of making sure you're still recruiting in-state and getting some of those guys, that are here in Tennessee. Is that important to Josh Heupel as well?
Oh, no doubt. There's no question. There's a reason he stated what he did in his press conference on Wednesday about the importance of the 25 class in the state of Tennessee. And that starts with a couple of guys in Nashville on both sides of the ball. We all know about George McIntyre and how significant he is to the class of 25. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Ethan Utley is an interior defensive lineman. And we just talked about Tennessee not signing a high school inside lineman on the defensive side of the ball in this class. Those two guys are huge priorities for Tennessee. I mean, major priorities. So there's no doubt you got to recruit in the state of Tennessee. And Josh Heupel's made it very clear the high school ranks are going to remain very important. Now, you're going to plug in some spots in the portal, and there may be years where you sign 6-8 guys out of the portal. I don't think you're going to see teams sign 15 to 20 guys out of the portal on a regular basis because, one, financially, I think it's going to be really, really hard to do that if you're getting quality players. And two, I think that if your culture's right in your program and you're stable with your program, you should not have the roster turnover every year that you have to go out and get 15 or 20 guys. Because if you do, then your roster retention's not very good, and you've missed out on a bunch of recruiting evaluations, and you're not a very good recruiting staff. So that's not where you want to be. I think for Tennessee and for most schools, you're going to be under 10 in terms of portal additions. And then the question is kind of what are your needs? Are you plug and play? Are you going to get the best available? And then the other thing, too, and I know this is a long answer, the other thing, too, is what does the market look like? How does the market shift as this thing moves forward? Because I think there were a lot of kids who went in the portal and asked for a lot of money that didn't get the amount of money they thought they were going to get. Now, maybe they got the amount they were asking for at the school they were at, but I don't know that they got the amount of money they thought they were going to get when they went in the portal. And some of that reality has to come to the forefront.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest and On 3, our guest this morning on RKW. Brent, Jordan Seaton's recruitment feels like something right out of those crazy fax machine, what in the world is happening, who in the world is going where from signing days past. As Tennessee and the rest of college football enters the final day of the early signing period, what is the latest on what he is going to do? Does he even know what he is going to do?
I think the first question is he definitely going to sign today? Or does he go into January and sign something in February? Does he just show up somewhere in January? I think there's a bunch of different variables out there. I do think ultimately he will sign today. I think Maryland has emerged as a school to keep a close eye on. I think he's pretty comfortable with Michael Oxley. Obviously, he's got the D.C. ties, growing up there, and a lot of his family's there, so D.C. makes some sense that way. I don't think he knows what he's going to do. I think that he's got a lot of people in his ear telling him what to do and telling him how to think at different times, and I think he's trying to figure it out. And I think he's had a lot of fun in the process of trying to figure it out, which probably is a head scratcher to so many. You talk about all these, you're struggling to make a decision, but you can get all the tweets out there and you can go Instagram live and you can do all these things about it, which I think people kind of wonder a little bit where the focus is and why sort of all the drama the way it is. I won't be surprised what he does if he does something today. I will be surprised if it's Tennessee. Stunned, shocked, no, but I will be surprised if it's Tennessee. But outside of that, it could be anything today. It really could. Feels like Colorado, Maryland, as I'm not sure some other teams have wanted to stay in the drama to a degree, but he's been talking to Boo Carter a lot. He's continued to talk to Tennessee. He's continued to talk to Colorado. He's talked a lot to Maryland the last few days. So we'll see what he elects to do, if he elects to do anything today.
Brent, Tulane wide receiver Chris Brazzel announced his commitment to Tennessee yesterday. The 3 years of eligibility remaining for him, I'm sure a key selling point for Tennessee, and 700 yards for him last season. Just how big of a get is this for Josh Heupel's offense?
Well, I like him. I like him a lot because of his production, and that's not a knock on Dante Thornton, because a lot of people want to compare him to Dante Thornton, right? And because he's an outside guy, speed guy. Thornton did not have near as much success on tape as Brazzel has, and I think that I like what Brazzel has done. I think it's a solid get. I think it's a good fit for him in this offense. He obviously learned the Tulane stuff very quickly and got on the field and was effective very early. And you mentioned the multiple years of eligibility, which I think is a big thing too. That's why when you go deep diving into the portal, I think it's that sophomore guy, that sophomore year guy. In most cases, there's some freshmen, but I think schools are really interested in the second-year player who hits the portal. And I think that's kind of the window we're looking at. I bet if you look at the number of players who are second-year players in the portal, that number has climbed every year since the portal's been open because that's where the guys are impatient. If you haven't played by your sophomore year, you really start to question whether you're going to get to play where you're at. And I think schools that are in the portal are loving the idea of getting somebody with multiple years of eligibility as opposed to going out and paying for a guy for 13 games. Now, if it's a plug and play in certain situations, 13 games for a guy makes sense. But if you can get a guy who can fill that role who has multiple years, that's what college coaches are looking for in the portal.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest is our guest Fridays at 7:20 here on RKW. Brent, have a Merry Christmas. We appreciate you guys. And again, I think we mentioned it right after our conversation last week, or I don't know if it was earlier this week, but you and Austin back-to-back days made like 5 or 6 predictions, and genuinely, since we last talked to you, all of them have happened. So we are grateful to be partners with you guys and to have you part of our team.
Well, we love being on this show, and I told you guys that back in the spring, Ramon, when we talked, and I've listened to this show. I listen to it, most every day while I'm sitting at the office working. I don't necessarily catch it live, but I catch it on YouTube, and you guys do a fantastic job. It's a great listen. It's entertaining. You're on the hot topics going on in the sports world, and it's a lot of fun to be a part of. So thanks for allowing us to be a part of your family, and Merry Christmas to all you guys. I hope you have a great weekend. Everybody relax and celebrate, and we'll talk to you next week from somewhere near International Drive in sunny Orlando, and the Vols and the Hawkeyes get ready to play.
Man,
awesome.
Thank you, Brent.
Great stuff. Thank you, Brent.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. There's Brent Hubbs. Great stuff with him as always.
Great
We are
words right there.
thankful to have them a part of our crew. Interesting, talking about Chris Brazzel. It almost reminds me, guys, at the baseball trade deadline, when you talk about rentals or guys under contractual control, when you get sophomores like this, you're getting guys under contractual control. And contractual, obviously, a relative term when you talk about guys that are transferring 2-3 times. But it's always a higher price in professional sports when you're paying for a guy who you have for 3 years. Right? Versus just a rental that you think is only going to be there for half a season or one season. I like this addition a lot. I think Tennessee likely still gets Brew McCoy back. Maybe not.
I hope so.
We'll see. I think that's pretty much up in the air at this point. But the idea of Brew McCoy and Chris Brazzel both being in a wide receiver room with Squirrel White, Dante Thornton back, and
just all the young
a 5-star
freshmen
Mike
that they
Matthews.
have. Yeah.
And Nico throwing to him.
Yeah,
That's right.
I know.